matters sometimes more than the grades and everything else, or it could be the coup de grace here. In other words, that would be the thing that would determine whether you get into a school or not. So what do you put in those essays to sort of influence an Ivy League school or a top college to consider you? Enter Nicholas Giordano, Suffolk Community College professor. Let me ask you about that, Professor. If the focus now is on these essays that a lot of kids write as they put their applications together for college, you don't have to say you're a minority. You can say about your journey and what got you here and make a reference to that, where there's an understanding that you're not using race, but you're using the experience, maybe inclusive of race, to get some special attention. Is that so wrong, and does that really change?
Well, you're right. It creates this backdoor approach, but we have to understand that race-based admissions is insulting because it insinuates that minorities can't compete with their counterparts. I've been teaching at a community college for nearly 20 years, and 50% of my students are minorities, and they perform just as well as white and Asian counterparts. And we need to stop with the racism of low expectations, because that's what these race-based initiatives do. They have such a low opinion. So we need to refocus at the college level back on the idea of merit and scholarship. If we continue down the path where race is going to be the deciding factor, well, then we diminish the value of a college education. We diminish the value of our own profession. And this isn't the 1960s America that they pretend we're living in.
You know, though, Professor, the only reason why I started with that question to you is that is going to be the means by which I glean from Harvard's response to this, that they will judge, future students and whether they're admitted or not, and that the essay plays an important role, and that essay is an opportunity for someone to talk about their life experiences, maybe to infer, special, race conditions, if you will, that is something that no doubt the Supreme Court will to keep track of the number of kids accepted at the schools and on what basis they were accepted. But if you don't see a marked change in the number or types of students accepted, what does this mean? Does the Supreme Court start saying, wait a minute, you're not listening to us? In other words, how does it enforce this?
Well, that's going to be the challenge, because we are going to see, I know how college administrators work, and we are going to see this subtle approach to put more weight on college essays, especially at a time where you see more and more colleges moving away from things like standardized tests that the Leadership Institute's Campus Forum has been reporting on. So we do have to pay attention. I don't think the battle's over. I think that we are going to see challenges to the SCOTUS's decision. I think colleges are going to try and use this as a backdoor attempt. However, I don't think it's necessarily going to work, because we just look at the last census. The last census showed that minorities, particularly Black and Hispanic college enrollment, has increased dramatically compared to what it was. And that's why I say we're living in 2023. So the reality becomes that we are seeing more people engaged on college campuses, going to college. And it's not about race anymore. We have to factor in and return to principles that academia used to stand for.
So, Professor, then how will the court, and not that it's the police mechanism, how will this be followed up? In other words, if they still see, Asian student acceptance rate is still low at 3% or what have you, and all the other groups remain roughly as they have been, isn't the Supreme Court going to come back and say, wait a minute, you're not listening to us, what we said here?
Well, I think if the percentages stay the same, you can't necessarily make the argument that that's a sign that nothing's changed in the admissions practice. I think what you're going to have to wait and see, is if those that are outperforming their peers are then still rejected based on being Asian or white.
But they're never going to say that. The schools are never going to say that.
They'll never say it out loud.
Right? Yeah,
but we will see students bring more lawsuits.
Got it. Professor, very good seeing you. Thank you for helping us out today.
Thank you for having me.
And by the way, that Supreme Court decision tomorrow likely on the president's plan to forgive up to $400 billion worth of student loan debt.